Hello everyone and welcome to today's Cambridge University Press ELT webinar. I'm Alistair Horn, Social Media and Community Manager for Cambridge University Press ELT, and I'm very pleased to welcome back Ricardo Morales as today's presenter. Ricardo is a TESOL qualified teacher trainer with more than 20 years experience in teacher training, materials development and course design. He's passionate about digital and online education, and for the last 10 years, he's been supporting private language institutions in Mexico and across Latin America to implement digital solutions. He's currently developing online teacher training programs for academic consultants worldwide. Welcome, Ricardo. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here again. And, well, we're going to start the session right now. So basically, and I'm really happy to see that we have people from all over the world joining this session. It's going to be hopefully a great and interesting session with informative and useful pieces of information that I would like to share with you today. So let's take a look at what we're going to be doing in today's webinar. We're going to discuss different aspects and approaches towards homework. Hopefully we can grab a few interesting points of view. Overview online tools available to facilitate further practice. And we're going to talk about engaging activities for class expansion as well. So hopefully by the end of the session, and as Alistair mentioned, if you have any question or comments or anything else you would like to add, I'd be happy to respond to those questions. So let's go and move on. I would like to ask a question here. And what is the role of homework in the teaching learning process? So we may think about homework as the tool to provide further practice for students, or we may want to use homework to assess performance. Perhaps we are using homework to grant class credits. That means that homework is part of the final score, and that's why we grant some points whenever they do their homework. We also want to consolidate previous acquired information or information that they have previously acquired, or we want to keep students busy outside class. We just want to be that person who spoils their afternoons or ruins their afternoons and say, yes, I'm going to give you a lot of homework. So this question of what is the role of homework in the teaching learning process, I would like you to write down in the chat box, in the message to everyone, what you think the role of homework in the teaching learning process is, the one that's more important or the most important for you, or any other that you would like to share with everyone. So why don't you take a few seconds and write the importance or the role of homework in the teaching learning process. Consolidation, right? Yeah. To interest students more, okay. Memorization, some practice, all right. Provide further practice. To reinforce what has been done in class, from Alejandra. That's true. Well, very interesting. Yeah, but we usually assign the role of homework when we want to provide further practice or when we want to consolidate students, information in students. So how useful is homework to help achieve these goals or these tasks or these objectives we have? So as consolidation, as further practice. In an ideal world, our students, when we are planning our classes, we have that secret desire that for a change, every plan we have for a class it's going to work with Swiss watch precision, and students are going to follow everything. In an ideal world, our students are going to get the lesson, they're going to go home, do their homework, consolidate information, and come back to you asking for more homework. Yes, of course, in an ideal world where everybody and students think like teachers, but that doesn't always happen. We sometimes struggle to have everything in place when we are planning. And that leads into a certain points in which we want to think, or we may want to think about a few things. Let's have a quick quotation here. From the following options, which is the closest to your teaching reality? So the percentage of the students who do homework and consolidate information, would you say that 100% of them is doing homework and consolidating information, or would that decrease from 75 to 99%, 50, 74, 25, 49, etc., 10 to 24%, or less than 24%? So, Alistair, if you want to help us here with the poll, yes. So you have to the right, we have a poll, and it's from the following options: which is the closest to your teaching reality? What percentage of the students do their homework and consolidate information? So this is for us to have certain information about the way your teaching reality takes place. So feel free to vote. This is going to be open for a few minutes, and then we are going to go back to some results. Now, thinking about homework, how much does homework help? Yeah, when we have, okay, so when we have activities in which we want to assign a homework to consolidate or to expand, well, everything can go right if students got all the information, if students achieved the expected goal, everything can go right, and students would be able to learn what is being taught and addressed in the class. And that's when homework becomes a really helpful tool, and everything goes well and goes fine as expected, or as we as teachers expect things to happen. But if students achieve the learning objectives in class, it is likely that they will be ready to consolidate and expand information. Perhaps they show up the next class ready to move on. Perhaps they are going to be ready to start integrating new knowledge into their systems, and everything is going to go well and as expected. But what happens if students got it all wrong? Let's say that you couldn't really achieve your goals for the lesson, for the session you had with them, that you were unable to achieve those learning objectives, and students left the room or left the class with some gaps, and you didn't really notice that, but you still assigned some homework. So if students didn't really get it all right, maybe you were not aware of what happened there. So they may be misunderstanding what they have to do. Perhaps they are not ready to consolidate that information, or something that's even worse, they could be consolidating some erroneous information. So you don't always have the possibility to correct or to help them or to provide some assistance until they come back to class and you realize that the students didn't really grasp everything as expected in the lesson planning. So that's when things go wrong and students don't really have all the information that's ready to be integrated. It's not in place and order, and they are not going to be able to move on. So consequently, that's going to stop you from continuing with your program or to achieve the learning objectives. It is important to notice that if students leave the classroom with information that's not ready to be consolidated, then the homework assignment may be kind of set up for some failure. So let's be aware of this, because when we assign homework, we may not have a chance to speak to students again until they come back. And if there is no that possibility of certain interaction, you may be unaware of what's going on in students' homework process, and perhaps you would be struggling, or they will be struggling when they come back to class. So why does this happen? Well, it may happen for a number of reasons. It might happen because of a lack of engagement from students into what's going on. It will have to do with motivation. It may have to do with students being unable to feel and to be interested in what's going on in the class. It may have to do with instructions. They may be unclear. Perhaps instructions are misleading as well. And maybe not everyone followed or understood the instructions for the task that you assigned. There may be certain unawareness of students' needs, of the students' performance, how they are performing, how things are going on into their realities. So this may be a consequence of students not being really engaged and able and competent enough at that stage to carry out with homework and homework duties. And as I said in the previous slide, is your students may struggle if they are not having all that, they are not equipped with all information that perhaps would help them succeed in the process. So when we talk about homework, well, we address the term meaningful homework. And meaningful homework can be discussed in different ways. We need to consider the needs of students. Yes, we always talk about being aware of their needs, but to what extent and to what level and in what important aspects should we be able to be aware of the needs? The objectives of homework. Why am I assigning certain homework for? If that homework is appropriate, the plans and the assessment. So let's take a look at each one of those. So the needs, as I said, they have to be related to personal needs and group needs. They are not only related to being to let's say what students want, but also about the linguistic aspects or the gaps they may have. So we have to be aware of that, what students need in order to be able to succeed in the process of learning. And also, once we've done that, we need to jump into the group needs as well. Then the context of those needs. Are these short-term needs? Are these needs just addressing some specific aspects? Is this part of a larger scheme? We need to be aware of in what context those needs arise. Also, if the needs are related to something that's applicable to their reality, yeah, if the information that they are learning has that immediate application into their lives, so we have to be aware of all those specific aspects. Another element should be the objectives, the target. What do we as teachers expect our students to achieve? If those objectives are achievable, I mean, if they can be realistically achieved by students, if there's a purpose to those. You can have an objective and it can be very well described, but if there's not a specific purpose for that, or if the purpose is not relevant, then students are not going to be engaged in all this learning process that includes homework as well. What about the level? Are we assigning a homework that is too challenging or not so challenging for students? Is it really important for them, and is it really something that is at level? What about the level of challenge as well? Yeah. What if we are having our students going over something they can't realistically do or perform? And if there's a meaning in that sense of what students are covering in that. So they have to understand the meaning as well. What about our plans for homework? We sometimes don't have all the time to plan ahead of time. We don't always have the possibility of including very well-targeted, specific homework in time and place, but we need to do it. We have to give students reasonable deadlines. Yeah, try to detach a little bit from that do it for tomorrow syndrome, in which we're just going to ask our students to do something for the sake of doing it, and do it because it's part of the program, because it's something that we have to do, and we just want everything ready for tomorrow or perhaps in 2 days. So if the class is well planned, we should give them reasonable deadlines. Also, clear instructions are a very core factor in the homework tasks and in the process of meaningful homework, because we need to make sure that our students understand what they are expected to do, but also what they are expected to achieve. They should have that clear in mind. Otherwise, if instructions are not clear, students leave the room without really knowing exactly what they have to do, and then they're just going to go back home, do the homework because it's just one other assignment, and if it's not important for them, or if it's important for them, they may not consider it relevant, as they would say like, oh, I didn't really get what the teacher was trying to come across with. And they will show up in class with that old excuse that perhaps some of us used in the past at one stage of our lives, which is, oh, I didn't do it because I didn't understand what I had to do. And we also have to consider the length and the amount of homework. We don't want our students to, I mean, more is not always better here. Sometimes less is more. If we assign very specific homework that's very well targeted, oriented, that is going to cover the needs of our students, that will prompt students to react and to be more proactive regarding homework and the task and the duty that they are going to comply with, well, then we shouldn't necessarily assign a long homework that's going to take and consume a lot of time. What about the assessment? We also have to consider homework as a tool, and I think that's one of the key points in homework, because it's an assessment tool. And if it's an assessment tool, it should be measurable in any way. So you should be able to acknowledge or to be aware of students' performance, and homework is a great device and a great tool when we are trying to assess students' outcomes, for example. Feedback. Feedback is a very important part of the teaching learning process, because everyone needs to be informed on the current status of the stage of learning that someone is having. We should make students aware of this all the time and provide feedback that's informative, not just feedback as a way to cheer up students' morale, or to say like, oh no, this is not what I was expecting. We need to be very clear and consistent with feedback, because we want our students to understand and to really know what the situation is. So homework is also a very important tool and a powerful tool you could use when it comes to feedback. And going together with feedback, information. Information is relevant so students know, as I said before, what it is, what's expected for them to perform, but also how this homework is going to help them be to to be engaged in a more, let's say, interesting process or in a more informative process where they will be able to be aware of where they are and what the upcoming steps in their learning process are. And going back to the poll where you voted a few minutes ago, well, we had that about from 50 to 75% is where you consider that your students are prepared for for homework, and they comply with their homeworks in time and manner and it covers. So going back to those aspects, you would say like, right, yes, I have to consider everything for homework. Like I don't have anything else to do. Like I just have all the time in the world to do that, and my main goal in life is just to be assigning helpful and instructive and meaningful homework to my students. Of course, we have tons of things to do, and of course, we have many other commitments and tasks to carry out with, and we don't always have the time to consider all those specific aspects when we are assigning homework. But there is hope. Yeah, there is hope, and you shouldn't really struggle too much. Wouldn't it be great if we could assign a homework task that is fun and engaging, that requires little planning, that informs teachers about students' performance at different stages of the homework process, so you know what your students are doing while they are doing their homework, so informs teachers immediately about students' outcomes, that you don't have to spend long nights and long hours trying to grade a homework that in the end it's not going to provide you with enough time to give feedback to students. So it would be great if we could have a tool that would inform you immediately about students' outcomes. What about a homework assignment that would provide valuable information for class preparation, allows teacher-student communication during the homework process, that if you could communicate with students and to inform them and to give them some feedback or guidance or further information that would help them complete the task the way you are expecting and the way it is expected to be completed. What about a tool that gives the right framework to personalize assignments? That it's not just to assign a homework for the sake of assigning it, but that we could personalize some aspects for that homework. That would certainly help for engagement in classes. So let's take a look at it in a different manner. We have online resources, which is part of what we're going to be also covering. We have already discussed a little bit about homework, how the homework process takes place, what elements to consider. And luckily, and I say luckily because at this time, we are able to have more tools that would allow us to have resources that will give us a better perspective and to obtain or to get better results and cover objectives in a clearer way. We have different resources. We have one that is CyberHomework, which is a component of the LMS that comes with more, a title from Cambridge University Press. But more, for those of you who are not familiar to the tool or to this publication, More second edition is a 4-level English course from recognized authors, for lower secondary students. It's from Herbert Kukla and Jeff Strangs. And there is a tool. They have a very interesting tool there that is called CyberHomework. It's as I said, it's part of an LMS. For those of you who are not familiar to an LMS, LMS is a learning management system, which is a place in the web where you could host information administer information, and have different types of contact and interaction for teachers and for students at different levels. So well, I'm going to use CyberHomework as an example of the types of resources that we could have in online and the resources that are available so we can have more productive and engaging homeworks. Take a look at this, at this chart. This slide has 4 types of activities. Yeah, these are the type of activities that come in CyberHomework. And below these 4 activities, you have names for these activities. I would ask you to, in the chat box, to type which one corresponds to the given activities there. So number 1 corresponds to, you have 5 options. So that means that one of the options does not have place here. So take a few seconds, look at the slides. They might be a little bit small, but I'm sure you are able to look at the information there and try to identify which one of the descriptors corresponds to each one of the activities that are illustrated there. So use the chat box to type your answers. Let's take a few seconds to do that. Okay, you're coming up with some now. Anybody else? I'm going to give you the first one. The first one is sequencing, which is one of the activities that we have there in CyberHomework, where students would be able to create sequences of information. Number 2, as it was said, Yuska said it. Number 2 is a drag and drop there. We also have categories where you find or you have those categories of information. And the 4th one is sentence completion. These are the types of activities that you have in a tool such as CyberHomework. And we're going to explore a little bit more on those tools in a few seconds. To give you a broader description of CyberHomework, in each class that you have in that specific tool, you have a set of specific interactive exercises to complete in about 10 to 20 minutes. And I would like to highlight here 2 relevant aspects. The variety of information and the type of activities that you can handle for one assignment, and also the time to cover certain assignments there and the tasks, which is not very long. So I would say that it's an interesting bet when you have a number of activities that would be covered in a reasonable period of time, that is not a long one. And that's going to give you the possibility of having students expanding, having students reinforcing information and going for further and prepare them for further tasks. Now, in CyberHomework, you have certain features that make it very interesting. For example, you can assign that activity to your students so when they open up their account, when they open up the resource, they would be able to see that they have an assignment for the class. You as a teacher can see how many of your students have already completed the task. So that means that if the deadline is close, you will have the possibility of taking some action before students go back to class to tell you that they haven't completed and they haven't done anything. And also, it allows you to see how they are doing. even though they haven't, not all of them have finished, you're able to see how they are doing in the tasks that they are performing. So it is important to remark that these aspects are going to allow your students to, they're going to allow you to have information before they complete their homework, to be able to take some actions before they finish or they deliver the homework, and that's going to allow them to be aware also of where they are, because that's one of the benefits of the tool, because this resource allows students to identify where the problems are, what type of information they are missing, and if they should do this over again. So this is the sort of information that you get as a teacher. And some other features there, as I mentioned before, is that you would be able to assign the homework and to mark it in a calendar that's going to be available and visible to students. And that's going to inform you and inform them when homework has to be completed. I think this is very important because students are not going to be just like doing things on their own without really noticing about deadlines. Deadlines are important, especially when you have a program to cover, and especially when you have to move on in improvement for your students. Please notice this is one of the exercises that we have in CyberHomework. This is one of the activities. It is multimedia. You are able to play an audio with different, it could be a dialogue, it could be a presentation, it could be just a short description of something. And the variety of activities would include perhaps typing the answers, or typing the scanning for information and typing that the notes that students will have to take about certain level of information that is required. Also notice that instructions are very clear and concrete. It says listen and complete the text, nothing else. You don't have to give further instructions. Students can practice this many times till they feel confident and comfortable with the outcome for this. Also, as I mentioned before, it gives immediate response to students in terms of feedback. It tells students how well they did, or if there are any problems with the information. It also gives you specific detail about the level of responses you had, where you were right. The green ones would allow you to see what was right, and if you didn't do right in everything, where you went wrong, so you can go back and do it again and cover it again. Some of you were mentioning in the chat box that that you assign homework to drill and to give students all the practice they need. Well, this is the perfect tool to give them practice that's meaningful, practice that serves a purpose, and practice that's going to cover very specific points. And this is all automatically graded. That means that you don't really have to spend your evenings and part of your personal life grading and giving and assessing and giving feedback to students. Of course, you give feedback, but you do it in different ways. CyberHomework also allow you to be able to identify tendencies in your classes and in your students. You can see, for example, from your students who has done everything, and also to what extent he was right or where he had problems. You can see if one of your students has partially done the homework assignment, and where is he now, what he's been doing. And even before you see that student again, you would be able to take some actions. So the student does not just come with incomplete homeworks or with homeworks that he didn't understand what to do with. Or you can see if the students are doing correctly and if they are ready to move on. So these are bits of information that you can handle in different ways. Yeah, you're going to be able to identify if that information is going to is going to lead into something that you would be transforming into specific actions. We're going to talk about that in a little while. Uh, as we mentioned before, teachers can use students' progress to uh, identify or to see where they are, what tendencies they may need to, or what aspects, sorry, they may need to cover. And I mentioned here that this is an engaging tool, or these are engaging and comes with engaging activities. Here, this is a drag and drop exercise in which students would give you information or would complete the chart and give everyone information if they are grasping very specific time expressions that are being used in a class. Or you can have the type of activities in which students are going to, let's say, sort out bits of information that's scrambled or unscrambled, those parts of information. Here, students would decide which one is the correct word or which one is not correct or is not appropriate for this specific category. And, well, they would complete that information just by clicking on some specific aspects. So if you see, it's very small pieces of tasks that they will have to complete. It's all broken down into smaller particles. So that's more manageable for them. That's easier for you to identify where they are having problems or where they are doing good. Now, we mentioned that these are engaging activities. Why? Well, because they are easy to follow. You don't have to give very complex instructions, and they don't have to go through a very long process of grasping information. They are level appropriate. They match the student's level. There are different levels for cyber homework, so you can choose from the different activities which ones are the ones that are appropriate for students. So you are not going to over-challenge them or underestimate their capacities. They promote active thinking. You don't want them just to zombie click and see if it works or not. It gives you more than that. It allows you to have these activities will help you promote students' active thinking by really challenging them not only in the level of English, but also in the type of information that they are being requested to give or to provide. So it's a very powerful tool to promote active thinking. It's very situational. Situations in which students are going to be feeling empathy with, situations where the target age is really involved into, and that leads into practical information. These situations are situations that they can also have in their daily lives as well. Communicative, it allows both students and teachers to communicate, but to communicate with meaning, not just to communicate for the sake of communication, and it gives immediate feedback. I think that one of the important aspects when it comes to engaging activities is that you know exactly what's going on right at the moment you finish doing something, other than just waiting until someone grades your homework and comes to you with a certain feedback. Well, that's something important to notice. That's why I consider that cyber homework would be a great tool for you to explore when it comes to engaging activities for students. There are many different approaches to cyber homework, and I wish we could have more time to discuss about those. You can exchange and interact with your students. You can send them messages to cover different aspects. You can have, for example, reminders. If you notice that halfway through students haven't been able to complete their tasks, you can send them messages. You can, let's say, send them feedback on performance. If you notice that your students are not necessarily doing well, you can send them some feedback. You can write them a note or send them a message saying like, hey, I've noticed that you're struggling a little bit with your homework. Is there any way I can help you with? What do you need help with? And sometimes that's going to give a lot information to students, and they will feel that they are not alone in this process. So that would help them getting better information. You can also have a class expansion here. You can choose to write messages to students about, I don't know, an activity they previously had. For example, this one that I chose to write, which is, do you remember Benjamin from the listening? That was the boy we saw in the picture. And it's, how good is your memory? Write down the following. So the idea here is that they will complete similar pieces of information. You can add up a little bit more, but students would be able to resort to that information they have previously acquired and they have previously practiced, so they could really move on faster here. Now, these are, you may say, these are scores, these are grades and results. I would say that these are performance indicators. Why are they performance indicators? Because they are going to tell us about the situation of your classes, about the situation of your students, and that would help you, as I mentioned earlier in the session, that's going to help you to create a cycle of continuous assessment. What does that mean? That you would be able to identify class progress, individual progress, how students are doing individually, how the class is doing overall. That would lead into make decisions. With that information you have, if you notice that some information that you have is not necessarily, that students' performance is not necessarily at level, well, you would need to make decisions. What type of decisions would you have to make? Well, you have to plan classes differently. You may want to have a different approach towards the class and how things are going. You may want to add more information. You may want to practice to recycle more. You may want to stop from moving on or moving further in the process, in the program, and you may just want to have students practicing a little bit more. Maybe your class needs more training. Maybe your class needs more communicative activities. So that's going to also give you the possibility of providing objective and useful feedback to your students. You would be able to identify where their areas of opportunity are, and with that information, you would be able to create a plan with students and to say, okay, you need more help when we talk about when you talk about your plans for the future, when you describe them. Well, maybe we need to provide you with a little bit more information and with some more tasks, and that's something that you have also as a benefit in CyberHomework, because you can give them further tasks and possibilities. And that's all going to impact in the class progress in the end. Now, how can I access CyberHomework? Because you may say like, oh, this might be, if you're unfamiliar to CyberHomework, this might be like, oh, that sounds good. I would like to explore a little bit further. Free registration for teachers is at this link that appears on the slide. I would ask Alistair if you could please type it down there so everyone has access to that in the chat, please. And there you can go to just register. Your students can register as well. And it's super easy. You don't need to struggle a lot in going into to create a username and to have a password. And you're in. So you should be able to start using the tool. You can set up your classes. You can include your students there. You can have you also have there some other specific class management tools there. You can share classes with the teacher. You can monitor your students' performance. You can see if they are online at the time you are there as well. It comes with a variety of components. we just addressed CyberHomework today. Hopefully in the future we can talk a little bit more about other possible tools that are worth using with this powerful resource. Yeah, and there are tons of opportunities and resources for teachers here as well. So we are, well, not running out of time, but we're having some time limitations here. And I would like, just as a summary, I would like to go back to the important aspects of assigning or having meaningful homework, which is to cover the needs of students, to have very clear objectives, to plan ahead of time, to assign homework that's appropriate for your students, and that's going to help you reach your objectives. And homework should be a tool that would allow you to have a effective objective assessment. And with the data that you have there, and perhaps if you join next week's session with my colleague Deidre, she would explore probably information about how to use data and how to manage that when it comes to informing your classes. So all in all, this is going to give you the very right, adequate tools. The beauty of this is that the use of online tools, such as the ones I just described, would help you have effective homework that's objective, that's going to cover the needs of your students, and that's very engaging. Yeah, I haven't heard students complaining about the use of this type of activities as long as they are because they are useful to them, and they come with a certain meaning, and they provide powerful information and powerful resources for both teachers and students. I believe we have a few more minutes. I don't know if this is a pertinent time to open up a few minutes to share your ideas, and I'm open for questions. Alistair?
Yes, Ricardo, we've got some questions. So first question's from Horacio Jaimez, who asks, when students completed a task with the system, do I receive an email or a notification?
Well, you receive a notification when you log in the platform. Yeah, so you have that information. I would advise teachers to go there on a regular basis, right? The tool is not aimed to work as a social media tool, but you certainly have information available when you log in the platform. I would recommend teachers that go there on a regular basis, and it's a fun way to explore because you would be able to see what students are doing.
Okay, thanks. We've got questions come up quite a lot. Has been about whether this. There's been a lot of enthusiasm for CyberHomework, and questions about whether it's available in sort of other areas, whether it's available for sort of older adult students or for younger learners, or maybe students who are 15 to 17.
Well, in the case of CyberHomework, which is a tool that comes with more second edition, we have that it's for that specific target. But here, I would like to add that we have different tools that are appropriate for different tools and different publications in Cambridge University Press that are appropriate for different levels of users that would address different users. So I would say it would be worth consulting our online catalog at Cambridge University Press. I don't know if we have that available, so maybe it may be worth typing it down, so students and teachers are able to see tools that have similar functionality, yeah, and that would help cover the needs for different age and target groups.
Okay, thanks. A few questions from people who are concerned about some of the difficulties generated by putting homework online. one from Amanda Magata Boscolo, who says, doing homework online, my students sometimes use online tools to translate it. Do you have any sort of advice on that?
Right. Yeah, that's a very I wouldn't say very common, but when students tend to translate or to go to other sources of information or resources to translate tasks, I would suggest that as a teacher, you assign the type of written homework. You here in CyberHomework, you could use the message exchange tool, so you can assign a written task for them where you personalize a lot. That way, even though they translate or use other resources for translation, they would still have to come up with something that's personal and that cannot be really translated. So I would suggest to assign more written-oriented tasks that would really make it evident that students are contributing with their own information rather than just translating from a source.
Okay, thanks. And also, I guess that should get them to engage more with the homework because it's more of a form of self-expression as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Question now from Irene Demidova, which you may just have answered with that answer there as well. But using smartphones and their colleagues' passwords and logins, students do homework for their classmates. Is the answer to that the same solution that you just suggested, really, that you can, making the homework personal to the student so that it's something you can't easily copy? Or do you have any other ideas?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that personalizing homework is a way to avoid or to prevent students from having someone else doing their homework. Now, you will find that most of the times and everywhere. But I would say it would also have to do with the level of engagement students would have here. So if it's not a very complex task that they will have to carry out, if they see that it's in smaller bits and pieces, as it is in CyberHomework, chances are that they are not necessarily asking someone else to help them, and that they would be eager to explore a little bit more and to prove themselves that they can do it by their own means.
Okay, thanks. Question now from Desiree van Zanten-Korn. You touched on this at various points, but are these tools free or are they only part of more?
Okay, for teachers, there's free registration. So when you become part of the tool, when you register, log in, you have access to those. And I also mentioned that some of these components, right, are available, and they once the moment students register, they have that available. You have access to certain tools there. In the aspect of CyberHomework, yep, it comes with a code that comes in the online in the workbook, in the student's book for more. But you definitely have. It's worth exploring it because the moment you see all the possibilities that you have, not only for CyberHomework, but for all the different applications there, you would find those very useful, engaging, and attractive for both teachers and students.
Thanks. Question from Laura Davila, who asks, is the platform and website available for smartphones?
It works. It works with different types of devices, so you shouldn't really have any problem accessing.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, question now about the future of this. So you're being very sort of up to date and sort of forward-looking on this, but what do you think the future of digital homework is? What happens next?
Okay, that's a very interesting question because every time we discuss digital tools, I mean, some people are, let's say, more oriented to traditional way of assigning homeworks, tasks, and duties. I would say that since we're in the age of information, where you have everything at literally the reach of your hand, and there's going to be more development, and education leads towards that aspect in which we're going to have more tools, resources available that they're going to be, I would say that they are becoming easier to handle now. One of the fears from people a few years ago had to do with the complexity of the tools, and I think they are very user-friendly right now. But we should not really forget that, after all, this is all about teaching and learning. And this and any other resources are that resources that would help teachers and students complete the process. But it's the tools. The essence of everything still will continue being teaching and learning.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, I had lots of questions about platforms for children. I mean, I know that this is sort of off the topic of more, but do you know which other Cambridge products have class have this?
Yeah, I could recommend, and that's a very interesting question, and I think it comes in very well timing, because we have Kidsbox. Some of you may be familiar to the title. It has come with a digital resource for quite a while, and new versions of Kidsbox are coming with great tools and very powerful, very attractive and interesting resources, digital resources for teachers and for students. I've seen how it works. It's really breaking ground, and I'm looking forward to being able to talk about Kidsbox in a future opportunity.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for at the moment, but don't forget that next week we'll have another webinar when Deirdre Safers will be back, talking about how you can collect impartial data on your students and their achievements, and what you can then do with that once you've got it. And I've just posted the link to sign up for that into the chat box, and I'll do that again now. And though after that we'll be taking a bit of a break from our Tuesday webinars, after that we'll be back in a few months with a new series of webinars coming up. Plus, you can keep up with what we're doing on our Facebook page, on Twitter, on our YouTube channel, and on our blog. And I've just posted all of those into the chat box. So thanks very much. Thanks particularly, Ricardo, for another excellent webinar. It's always good to hear from you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And yes, so back next week with Deirdre, who's got a very good session ahead of us. And also, just to remind you that certificates of attendance will send automatically to you next week. So thanks very much, everybody, and I hope to see as many of you as possible in a week's time. Thank you very much.